Fair use. Daily reflections. This is a book of reflections by AA members for AA members. November 19th. I was slipping fast. We AAs are active folk, enjoying the satisfactions of dealing with the realities of life. So it isn't surprising that we often tend to slight serious meditation and prayer as something not really necessary. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 96. I had been slipping away from the program for some time, but it took a death threat from a terminal disease to bring me back, and particularly to the practice of the 11th step of our blessed fellowship. Although I had 15 years of sobriety and was still very active in the program, I knew that the quality of my sobriety had slipped badly. 18 months later, a checkup revealed a malignant tumor and a prognosis of certain death within 6 months. Despair settled in when I enrolled in a rehab program, after which I suffered 2 small strokes, which revealed 2 large brain tumors. As I kept hitting new bottoms, I had to ask myself why this was happening to me. God allowed me to recognize my dishonesty and to become teachable again. Miracles began to happen, but primarily I relearned the whole meaning of the 11th step. My physical condition has improved dramatically, but my illness is minor compared to what I almost lost completely. Courage to change one day at a time in Al-Anon, November 19th. For years, I lamented the absence of a label that would identify the soul sickness that brought me to the fellowship. I wanted to say, I'm a recovering controller, enabler, caretaker, fixer. Although they identify some of my character defects, these labels miss the mark. I'm not simply seeking recovery for one limitation or problem. The goal I'm striving for in Al-Anon is an overall sense of wellness. My pursuit of this goal began by seeking recovery from the way a loved one's alcoholism has affected my life. But today, Al-Anon offers me even more. As I heal and grow, I find that it is no longer enough simply to survive. The principles and tools that brought me this far can help me to create an increasingly rich and fulfilling life. Today, when I say I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon, I'm not zeroing in on one particular problem, but rather participating in a whole host of solutions that can lead to emotional, physical, and spiritual health. Today's reminder: as I continue on the never-ending path of spiritual progress, I will expand my view of recovery. There is a quote from the 12 Steps and Traditions, and it reads, "In Al-Anon, we believe life is for growth, both mental and spiritual." Just for today, Daily Meditations for Recovering Addicts, November 19th. The language of empathy. The addict would find from the start as much identification as needed to convince himself that he could stay clean. By the example of others who had recovered for many years. Basic text, page 88. Many of us attended our first meeting and, not being entirely sure that NA was for us, found much to criticize. Either we felt as though no one had suffered like we had, or that we hadn't suffered enough. But as we listened, we started to hear something new, a wordless language with its roots in recognition, belief, and faith. The language of empathy. Desiring to belong, we kept listening. We find all the identification we need as we learn to understand and speak the language of empathy. To understand this special language, we listen with our hearts. The language of empathy uses few words. It feels more than it speaks. It doesn't preach or lecture. It listens. It can reach out and touch the spirit of another addict without a single spoken word. Fluency in the language of empathy comes to us through practice. The more we use it with other addicts and our higher power, the more we understand this language. It keeps us coming back. Just for today, I will listen with my heart. With each passing day, I will become more fluent in the language of empathy. Today, Emotions Anonymous, November 19th. Reflection for today. I look at myself as a person and say, this is what I am right now. I judge myself and create an attitude, usually negative about myself. And it is that attitude which I have toward myself that determines how other people feel about me or how they will react to me. The program is teaching me to think about my assets rather than my liabilities. It is necessary for me to spend some quiet time daily trying to gain a more positive perspective on my life. Meditation for today. May I develop a more positive attitude about myself. Help me to stop putting myself down, which will allow me to respect me. Today I will remember, accentuate my positives. Strengthening my recovery. Meditations for adult children of alcoholics, dysfunctional families. November 19th. Accepting ourselves. As we sit and think about our shortcomings, we do not judge ourselves. BRB, page 215. As children, we often had to endure verbal attacks that as adults made us vulnerable to even the slightest criticism. Even in ACA, it was difficult for some of us to hear that we had defects of character, because we interpreted that as being defective, which felt shaming. Because we knew these were our core issues and that the program could help us, we might have found other words that made us feel more comfortable, such as character defenses, step 1 issues, spirit blockers, or simply shortcomings. No matter what we call them, it is essential that we look at them in the proper light and accept them as a part of who we learned to be. We also become aware that they are the very things that come between us and our higher power. They affect how we feel about ourselves and how we relate to other people. In becoming willing to work the steps, We gradually come out of the isolation we've used to protect ourselves, and we begin to acknowledge our strengths, one of which is our ability to intuitively know that the tools of ACA are giving us a new and better life. We're learning balance. The affirmation reads, "On this day, I choose to face my shortcomings without judging myself harshly. I accept all the parts of me." Please share, subscribe, like, and remember that you are not alone, one day at a time.